in most states, very rarely, I mean, it's a big deal to get an issue where both sides truly come together. They have 100 state house delegates. 93 voted in favor of this. 93. 31 of 34 state senators. You know, we spend the most money on healthcare, right? And we do not get the best results. Even if you're voting for the less bad, as some people like to say. We still chose Trump, but this is like serious change for the first time, and change that needed to be done to save our country. We are going to go to Patrick Bet-David. Now, Patrick Bet-David just did an interview with the Ben & Jerry's, one of Ben & Jerry's founders, Ben Cohen. So we're going to get to that. We're going to show some clips of that. I really wish Patrick Bet-David would have let him finish that, because what he was starting to say is, see, this is my wheelhouse. Because I was a financial advisor for 24 years, so I know this shit. Patrick Bet-David never challenges him on his use, and he uses the word multiple times through the whole interview. I love how Patrick handles it on this. Doesn't end well unless it ends. They never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I'm just report the fucking habit with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That mean you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it off. Just a motherfucking jump. Just go. Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And the other guy is fucking ready too. Chase, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
Man, we're just past hump day. And we're moving along. We are moving along. The week seems to be going pretty quick and trying to fit everything in. But that's just what we do. We just keep grinding it out. But it is so funny. I can't imagine with these liberals having to deal with Trump and how much stuff he is throwing at them and how fast. I'm enjoying it, and it's still a lot going on. Their heads are spinning, and I'm just getting tickled about that, I guess. And so we're going to get right into it. We're not going to mess around. That's just what we're about now. We're about getting to it. And we are going to start with our Maha segment, which is Make America Healthy Again. And we are all about that. So I don't understand the need for this. And I'm not a big fan of, I'm a big fan of getting rid, now that I know more about it, of getting rid of these food dyes that are toxic and getting them out of our foods that companies have been adding for years and years. I'm all about getting rid of that. And steps were taken by the Biden administration on their way out the door. They made a move on one of them, because there's less than 10 that are approved by the FDA. But on one of them, which was the red dye, you know, before they left office, they did that. And great. There are others, and we need to make these changes, but that's at the federal level. I guess what I'm not for, what I don't like, and I'll give you this example. This will better explain it. So they make motorcycles, Harley Davidson does, and I'm sure car manufacturers too. They make vehicles for California, and then they make vehicles for the rest of the country. Or they make vehicles for California and then those states that follow California, and then for the rest of the country. And then sometimes what they do is they make vehicles based on the California laws and regulations, and the rest of the country's just stuck with it, you know, because it's not necessarily the easiest or best thing for companies to be able to do to make, you know, a certain vehicle for one area and another vehicle for other. I mean, we're already doing that with gasoline and other things like that. So I'm not, I don't, I understand what they're trying to do in West Virginia, and that's the story. In West Virginia, they are wanting to ban the food dyes. And that will have an effect on the rest of the country. I mean, you can't just make a cereal just for West Virginia, right? And I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to support Trump there. They're trying to support, the policies that we're working towards and things. But I'm just more for the federal government doing that across the board, just because you can't have separate rules for everything state by state. That just does not work. So I'm not a big fan of that. But again, I am a fan of what they are trying to do there. And it's really, really interesting when you dig into it. And that is that these lobbyists from the American Beverage Association, who represent, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and because they're making more than colas too. They have all the energy drinks, water drinks and stuff now, and some of those have the dyes in it. And usually where these lobbyists are located are Washington, D.C. Well, now those same lobbyists, because shots have been fired in West Virginia with this bill that they're trying to get passed, that these lobbyists are showing up, where do you think? In Charleston, West Virginia, in their state capitol halls, trying to press lawmakers like, oh, you can't do this. Now get this. I don't know why it would take this long, but the start date for the House version of the bill that they've already passed, but it hasn't moved on to the Senate yet. I don't know. There's a little bit of fight about that, simply because it seems like, again, these lobbyists are in the ears of the leaders of the parties and the governor. They're heavy pressing them, and I'm pretty sure it has something to do with campaign donations, right? You know how they operate. But it wouldn't take effect to January 1st, 2028. That's over 2 years, over 2.5 years. They don't need more than 2 years if it's passed, and the move we're making with the federal government to do this. If they have any doubt that the Trump administration and that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be making this his mission to get this kind of stuff done and to get our food supply healthier, we have example after example for the just over 50 some days, 60 days, whatever it's been, that Trump has been in office. We have examples every day. I would take them pretty seriously at this, that this is something that they're going to do. I realize there has to be an adjustment period because it's maybe going to take different equipment, different machines, whatever, sell out the old product, whatever. It doesn't take 2 years, okay? There's no reason this couldn't start in 2027, but they're giving them time to make the adjustment. And what I believe would happen is some companies would make the adjustment much quicker, because that's what you have now. Some companies aren't waiting. They've gotten the message. Just in the last episode, seed oils aren't banned for use in restaurants, but some restaurants have gotten the idea, and also the smart idea that, hey, maybe we can use this for marketing too. We're going to get on this bandwagon early and do the right thing. I did say that when I was listening to myself, as I do, I listen to every podcast. When I was listening to myself, I said the right thing. And what maybe the better choice of words would be the better thing. Choosing the better thing is, I think, the way to better frame this. But I, they're so, so all of a sudden they care about West Virginia. And this was, you want to know how bipartisan this was in West Virginia? Oh my God, because this never happens. It doesn't happen in Washington, D.C., it doesn't happen, you know, in most states, very rarely. I mean, it's a big deal to get an issue where both sides truly come together. You know, usually if you can get 5 or 6 of the other team's votes, they call that bipartisan, even when it's not. But they have 100 state house delegates. 93 voted in favor of this. 93. 31 of 34 state senators. If you're the American Beverage Association, you better think of a different plan than opposing this. Otherwise, I mean, you want to piss off the American consumer? That's probably not a good idea. So I really thought that was great. But the other thing that is so funny is what they're pushing is that, oh my God, we can't do this because if we do this, it's going to, like, you're just going to eliminate foods on the food shelves. There's going to be a shortage. There's going to be a loss of jobs. Oh my God. No, there's not. This is not what West Virginia is talking about doing, what we're talking about doing nationally. This has been done in other countries. It's done in Canada. It's done in Europe. These same companies that don't want to do it here are doing it there. So it can be done. And this is a great, we don't have a better person to be in charge and to lead the way on this than somebody like Robert Kennedy Jr., because he's sued companies like this before. He's been involved in this for a very, very long time. We have somebody that's truly going to take this to the mats and fight it out and push this and get it done. So I think this is an absolutely fantastic step. I'm that to see that there's this support out there. Again, I'm not necessarily for the fact that West Virginia is doing this versus everyone else or the federal government, but there's just so many things going on. But at least to kind of continue to push in that direction and show that there's the support and to show that there is support. Like it is possible for these two parties sometimes to come together. There's got to be a way on an issue when we're simply talking about better health for everyone, better options, better choices for everyone. You know, we spend the most money on healthcare, right? And we get and we do not get the best results. Certainly not for the money that we spend. And, you know, people have wanted universal health care, for example, right? And I'm not an advocate of universal health care, but, you know, maybe money is there to do things that we're not doing that people want, even if I'm against it. But the money is there if we do things like this, if we do things like cut the Pentagon budget. You know, if we're not at war, if we're not supporting our allies, we're abandoning our allies. No, we've had our allies back since World War II. And because we spend your tax dollars defending those motherfuckers, they haven't spent the money, even haven't contributed what they were supposed to contribute to NATO. We protect those motherfuckers. And because we spend our money on defense and their defense, then they don't have to spend the money on defense and they can have those social programs. So some of you liberals that want some of these social programs, you know where the money is? It's there. It's being spent already. It's just not being spent on Americans. And I just heard, and I'm totally for this, and Trump is for it too, if you ever listen to him. He will tell you, I heard, maybe it was the Ontario governor, or whatever they call the leaders of their provinces in Canada, right? That the one that was going to was going to slap a surcharge on electricity coming into this country, right? Well, one of the things I heard him say, that more power to him. You know what? I totally get it and totally understand, because I want my president to do that too. He said, we're going to take care of Canadians first. He put Canadians. That's what Trump believes. All of these other countries with tariffs and other things, they're putting their people, and in trade, they're putting their people first. They're trying to protect their farmers. We try to protect our farmers. Okay, but we got to find a way to do this so that it is fair for everyone, and that we're not getting screwed by all of these other countries and having trade deficits with all of these other countries. You know, that just shouldn't be a thing. So I think it's great that they want to put their people first, and they should. And Trump treats it like that. They're going to defend theirs. We're going to defend ours. The problem is nobody's been defending ours. You want to know? They don't understand why we voted for Trump, why we haven't changed our mind. They still think, from reading all of the comments that I read, they still think somehow a light bulb is going to go on and we're going to get it and we're going to see it from their point of view. Do you know how many years we've had now? We've had the campaign prior to Trump's first term and what he said. We have the 4 years and know what he did. And we do, treat what he did prior to COVID and what he did with COVID as two separate events. Then we had 4 years of Biden. And the people decided, you know what? Between the two, even if you're voting for the less bad, as some people like to say, we still chose Trump. But this is like serious change for the first time, and change that needed to be done to save our country. And that also starts with saving and focusing on our health. You know, if you're healthier and you're taking fewer medications, do you care if because of that, a pharmaceutical company lays off 1,000 people? Is that terrible? Because less people are buying the drugs, or we just want people to buy the drugs and die? I mean, people aren't thinking it through to the end. This is a good thing. And if there are going to be consequences like that, there just are. And it's okay. They'll find something else. There's something else out there. But it's really going to be interesting, our next segment, and because we're going to get into jobs in the economy, you're going to love it. Well, at least I did. This is one of the best interviews that I've ever seen. So we're going to move on to that. So all good on this front. We're moving forward. It's a good thing. So next segment, we are doing the Make America Healthy Again. You're listening to the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And this fucking guy needs you to take some of our new episodes, take some of our new shorts, hit that subscribe button, but send it to other people, because we're making a change. Now, you can now, it's going to be much easier, go into certain segments of the show and just listen to those parts that are important to you. You know, if the health and fitness stuff you're not into, fine. If you're not into the sports stuff, fine. If you're into the political stuff, listen to that. Or if you don't like the political stuff, but you like the health stuff, listen to that. You know, it's available to you. It's easy. Share what you like with somebody else that you know likes the same thing. Much love and appreciation. God bless. No, great again. We just did healthy again. We are going to go to Patrick Bet David. Now, Patrick Bet David just did an interview with the Ben & Jerry's, one of Ben & Jerry's founders, Ben Cohen. Now, let me set this up real quickly. Ben Cohen is a liberal. He's a Bernie fan, if that helps you kind of figure out a little bit who he is. He believes in, I don't know, some type of mix of socialism and capitalism. It's pretty crazy. But he's a nice guy. And they had a great product, and they still have a great product today that's owned by Unilever, is who owns Ben & Jerry's now. But they came up with a great product. These guys were like hippies, okay, years ago. And they're still they're old hippies today. And like I said, he has a really, really good heart. His heart's in the right place. And how Patrick Bet David handles him is absolutely phenomenal, where it's not, the interview isn't done in an antagonizing way, but you really get an idea of what liberals think about different things by listening to him, and use some logic then and see if it really makes sense. So we're going to get to that. We're going to show some clips of that. And let's see, the first clip we're going to start with is a little conversation they're having about capitalism. So you can start that at 4:32.
So the question then becomes, how do you, who has made his money as a capitalist, support a socialist? How does that work out? I'm really curious.
You know, I think there's social democracies. I mean, I don't think socialism is opposed to capitalism. I think there's a way of doing capitalism that kind of cares about people, that has a better safety net, that is not so rapacious. I mean, what we have in the U.S. is unfettered capitalism.
And quickly stop it right there for a minute. Patrick Bet David never challenges him on his use, and he uses the word multiple times through the whole interview, never challenges him on the use of unfettered capitalism and what that actually means. There's actually a definition for unfettered capitalism. Now, let me tell you what unfettered capitalism is, and you tell me whether we have unfettered capitalism in the United States. Unfettered capitalism is an economic system where markets operate with little to no government regulation, allows businesses to engage in commerce with minimal restrictions, a system where private enterprises set prices, wages, production levels, purely on supply and demand, without interventions such as labor laws, environmental protections, antitrust regulations, or financial oversight. Now, we have somebody with us right here in the studio, the other fucking guy. And I can tell you, I was in the financial business, being in investments. Banking, they're all financial institutions. And I used to say that I don't know if there was a more regulated industry than investments in banking and finance. Like, I would compare it to nuclear energy or nuclear power. Like, it is super highly regulated. Now, you have to deal, Chase, with those regulations every single day, and there's a shit ton of them. Correct? You yeah. You're doing it every day. There are. So for this to be said, that there's no regulations. Now, Republicans typically like to reduce some regulations. Too many regulations can just strangle a business or an industry. And we're not, at least me, most conservatives aren't for unfettered capitalism. We're not for just trusting people to do whatever. We do have environmental laws. You know, we want to keep those environmental laws, or some environmental laws, but we also want the process to be sped up. We also don't want to have to protect, you know, some little stupid smelt fish that doesn't mean shit, that's stopping, you know, water from getting from one part of California to another. You know, you have to weigh the benefits and, you know, the negatives to doing something, but we have to have some semblance of rationality. But we do have labor laws. There are minimum standards of how you can treat an employee. You can't just, you know, they can't just work people for 12 hours without giving them breaks and lunch breaks and stuff like they did 120 years ago. We have them. So we do not have unfettered capitalism. And I wish he would have really challenged him on that, because that's what we do have, and what you've heard me repeat here, and I will continue to, is crony capitalism. And if this was explained to Ben Cohen, I think he would agree. I think he would agree that we have crony capitalism. We know that people in government, some are corrupt and favor certain people, friends, or donors, and favor their companies and businesses. We know it's happened. It's happened on both sides. The government should not be picking and choosing. Like when people complain about the subsidies that Elon Musk and Tesla get, those subsidies were available to everyone. Like they would have, like, some of them might be direct to the company, but they would also have subsidies that would help to the individual. So that if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, especially a new one, that you could get a certain tax deduction. Okay. Now, these were expensive vehicles for that rich people bought and getting, like, I don't know why they needed that, but that's what they did. And it didn't matter the brand. It just happened to be the biggest brand, the best seller, the biggest company in electric vehicles is Tesla, and is still so today. Okay. There are other electric vehicle companies that are on the verge of bankruptcy that should be allowed to go bankrupt. Because that's what had happened. It happened in traditional auto industry with gas-powered vehicles. It's happened. You can't save them all, and if their model isn't working, it just isn't working. But so it didn't matter, again, what vehicle you purchase, as long as it was an electric vehicle and qualified under the guidelines. It wasn't just Tesla that was getting the money. Okay. And so I'm all for not having that, or if you are going to have it, then don't bitch that one guy is doing better. What I'm against is the state of California, because Tesla was leaving, was going to have a certain tax break for people for every vehicle, electric vehicle, but Tesla. That's showing favoritism, right? That's showing favoritism. That I'm totally against. I'm totally against any state or the federal government showing that kind of favoritism of one company over another. They should not be picking the winners and losers. You know who picks the winners and losers? Us, the marketplace. We determine what we like and the quality of what we want for the price of it, and if there's value in that. And if there is, it's likely to succeed. If there's not, it'll fail. And that is just business. So we do not have unfettered capitalism. All right, you play the rest of that for a second.
Ends up happening when you have that is a tremendous spread between rich and poor. You know, when Jerry and I started Ben & Jerry's, the spread between CEO pay and line level workers pay was 40-1. And we thought that's outrageous. So we had a lower one. We came up with the 5-1 ratio.
That's interesting,
and,
by the way.
And
the
that's
concept.
changed over time. But
So
today,
it's no longer 5-1 at Ben
no.
& Jerry's.
But today, the salary ratio between CEOs and line level employees is 400-1.
All right,
And
let's stop this for a
Look,
second.
we're in.
See, this is my wheelhouse because I was a financial advisor for 24 years, so I know this shit. Well, certainly things have changed in CEO pay because of laws and regulations. But understand this noble idea that this man was, let's say, the lowest paid worker, and I'm sure it was higher or lower at the time, but let's just say the lowest paid worker was making $20,000 when they started the company. So these guys are making $100,000. That's just the income they're pulling out of the company. And even though that's the only income they were pulling out of the company, him and the founder were the majority shareholders. I don't know how many minority shareholders they might have had or at different times or sold parts of the company to grow the company. I don't know that information. But they were the major shareholders, and we know they were because they got between listening to this, they probably, when it was sold for $360 million 25 years ago, they probably each partner got 80 to 100 million. That's where his value was. That's where his wealth comes from. The ownership of the company and the ownership of shares, and even if it's not publicly traded, it doesn't matter. It's when somebody does sell a company, it's the value that they're going to get then. So he just deferred his payment. Think of it like the baseball player, the Dodgers.
Ohtani.
Yeah, Ohtani. That's who I was thinking of. So Ohtani, huge deal. What was it, like 300 million, 500 million? It was a huge, huge number, whatever it was. Doesn't matter off the top of my head, but it's a gigantic number. But he deferred it till later. He's still going to get it. So it may have looked good and felt good. And, you know, these guys you think they're doing something noble by taking less. They still got paid in the end. And for the most part, you'll hear as we go through this in a couple spots, they did, treat their employees well, it seems like. And what he did was fantastic. He created a company that didn't just create ice cream, but created 1,700 jobs. And it seems like they tried to pay the best that they can, along the way. But I'm going to have some views about that and how people get paid that are just fantastic, that demonstrations on here. So this is just a good demonstration, this particular podcast of capitalism, of business, of understanding socialism, of understanding capitalism, and I encourage anybody to watch it. Let's go to 622. I think let's jump to 622. That's not very far ahead of there. And this is going to be about when he's talking about poor people getting screwed. So
Screwed.
But why though?
Because why am I against it?
No, why? So okay. So please help me understand this. So at first you start Ben & Jerry's, and I saw that where you guys were doing 5-1 ratio, meaning if the lowest level employee full time was making 30 grand a year, the CEO couldn't make 150 a year, right?
Correct,
That was
correct,
at the time.
correct.
What do you think the ratio is right now at Ben & Jerry's?
I really have no idea.
Would you say it's 1 in 40? Do you, so
It
you,
might be.
but you work there, so you know what the CEOs make. You know what kind of money is making. You probably have the context in there. Let's just say the CEO of a company. Like if I go right now, Rob, can you find out who is the CEO of Ben and Jerry's? I don't even know it. Ben and Jerry's
They
CEO,
didn't really find
salary.
the number. I
I don't
did.
know
It
what
is
it
$1
is. I've
million.
never Googled it.
It is $1 million is what the CEO makes. That's just salary. And I don't know, because it's owned by Unilever, and that CEO, his pay, I didn't see the salary part, but with stock options and stuff, his payout was 19 million. So you know that the Ben and Jerry CEO is also going to be getting stock options and other things too. So it might be between 3 and 4 million when it's all said and done. Salary, $1 million. So you can go ahead and hit that again.
Yeah, I'm interested. I've never Googled it either.
Okay, so Ben and Jerry's salary, CEO, back in 2000, we're talking.
That was at the time that the company got sold.
But at the time, the salary was 504. 25 years ago, it was 504. Okay, so which became 17 to 1. All right, so I want you to follow this. So what you just said is I'm just responding to what you said.
Yeah.
So Ben and Jerry's got started. You guys wanted to be very noble and, hey, we're not going to pay anybody at the highest level 5 times more than the lowest level employee. Lowest level makes 30, highest level makes 150. Okay, cool. Nice guys, noble guys. By 2000, you build a business that's doing 200 million a year. You guys are selling it for 326. Then the CEO pay was 17 times the lowest amount the employee was making. So that disparity went from 5 to 1 to 17 to 1. Let's say today, who is today's CEO of Ben and Jerry's?
Dave Stever.
Is it Dave Stever? What is Dave Stever's salary at Dave Stever salary Ben and Jerry? Right? If I go to it, I wish I could see it. I wish it was public. It's not showing it. But let's just say he's making a couple million a year. You guys are a billion.
I don't think he is.
Does he get stocks? Does he get shares? Does he get bonus? Does he get LTIP? Does he get?
I don't think so. I would think that
But if it was 500,000 25 years ago, Ben, it's not going to be less than 25 years ago.
I believe it probably is, but I don't know. I don't have.
I know,
data.
but let's just say it's $1 million. Let's say conservatively it's $1 million.
And it is.
And let's say the ratio now instead of 17 to 1 is 30 to 1. So you guys started off 5 to 1. It went 17 to 1. Let's say it's 30, 40 to 1 now. And then at the time you're saying 40 to 1 was what it was in the corporate world. Now it's 400 to 1. You guys have 10x, they have 10x. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with if you're creating value? Ben, you guys did something that's very difficult. Do you know how many people in America build a business from scratch that go from $0 to $1 billion in sales?
Not
Do you know
many.
how? Oh, Ben, what you've done is called doing the impossible. And I think the market should recognize you for it, your level of creativity. So that's the part. Do you think like when you guys originally started and you're building a business and you and your partner, you guys are two nice guys, Potter and a guy that was rejected from medical school, you built something with a $5 course that you take on making ice cream. And at first, maybe you guys coming from a place of socialistic ideologies. And then now you're kind of like, well, maybe capitalism's kind of cool. and there's nothing wrong with capitalism. Have you gone through that evolution yet or not yet?
I think that there's a form of capitalism that works well.
Okay.
We've always been a capitalistic country. My understanding is that when Reagan took office, the marginal tax rate on the highest level was like 80%. I mean,
which nobody paid for. Just so you know that they had it, but no one ever paid it. No, really, no one ever paid it. It was what they talked about, but everybody adjusted in ways so nobody, even like people would do certain jobs, so they never paid the highest marginal tax
you
rate.
Stop it there for a second.
Whatever. But I mean,
what happened back then is we had higher tax rates, but we also had more tax deductions. Like you could, like all interest, like you could deduct interest from all different types of loans and credit cards and different things to lower it. So that's why people didn't pay it. And when they did away with it, they did it in a way, they also did away with the tax deductions. So when they lowered it so that's really what happened during that period of time to make it a little easier and simpler. But truth is, our tax code is way too thick, way too complicated, and we need at some point to have a discussion about that again. Probably not right now. Maybe that's 2 years from now, because there's just so much on the plate right now, and that's such a big one. That's like having the talk about Social Security that we will have to have at some point. It's just not today. There's just too many other things on the plate, and that would drown everything else out. They're just huge things. But there have been proposals in the past, back in the 90s and early 2000s, where we talked about a flat tax really got pushed and was popular, or a national sales tax, or just a flat 10% or 15% or whatever the number is. There's two numbers, and you apply it to your income, and your tax thing is on a postcard, and you send it in, and that's it. But they use our tax code to control us, to control our behavior, to incentivize or penalize different behaviors. And that's a lot of power, and that's the power held by Congress. And how much do they like to give up power? Not really. So that's why that doesn't happen. But again, here's a guy who's really, really good, built a really, really good business, an amazing business, but still, you can start to see in the interview where they're just parts he's missing or doesn't know. And I do applaud Ben for legitimately saying throughout the interview, if he didn't know something, or it's something he said he didn't know. And I appreciated that. I appreciate that with anyone. He was honest. This is who he really is. So go ahead.
That's the idea.
Right.
That's what kind of makes sense to me.
It's to have it at 80%?
Well, what is it now? What's the top marginal bracket? What is
If you live in California, you're paying nearly 60%. But let's just say 43%.
Right.
You think that's too little?
I think that the system that has created such disparity between rich and poor, and that's part of it. So, no, I don't think that works. I think a lot of people in this country are being left behind. I think 50% of the country is getting screwed economically.
Why, though?
Because of laws and regulations that favor wealth.
Such as what? You're a rich man.
What is there? There's lower taxes on capital gains, right?
But why, though?
Those who don't work,
who don't work
pay less taxes.
Let me ask you a question. When you sold, you paid capital gains, no?
Sure.
No, you did. When you sell a company, you didn't pay ordinary income. You pay capital gains taxes. So you guys sell for $326. Let's just say at the time you own 80%. I don't know what percent.
I didn't.
Okay, but let's just say whatever it is, you still are a 9-figure guy. You made real money. Each of
How
you
many
guys.
figures?
9 figures, like 100 million plus.
No, I'm 8 figures.
Okay, but
High
guess what
8
you are? You're
figures.
still very rich compared to the average person. But here's a question for you: How hard?
I don't need that much money. I can tell you that.
Give it away.
This is
I give a
good.
lot of it away.
Give all of it away. Just keep $500,000 of it.
Eventually.
Well, why don't you do while you're alive?
I'm working on it.
Well, why don't you do it sooner?
I don't know. I haven't
Because
found a
you
good.
shouldn't do it. You've
Have-
earned
Hold
it.
it right
Ben.
there.
You worked your
I
ass.
really wish Patrick David would have let him finish that, because what he was starting to say is he hasn't found a charity, a cause, or something that he felt worthwhile enough to give that money to. But you know what? Even though he's a liberal, I trust him to give away his money whenever he gives it away. If he decides to give it away, I trust him to do it and to do better things with it, than by giving it to the government, who I saw they held up these bushings, just just a little piece of metal with a hole in it, right? That you use when you're putting a screw in someplace, right? And it was for the Air Force, and there was a small bag of them. The bag was like this big, right? Small bag of them. The bag was mostly full. I don't know how many was in there. And that whole bag, if you went to Home Depot, wouldn't have been $50. And that bag, our Air Force was paying $90,000 for. We're letting no American or no person should be allowed to take advantage of what process do we have in place that allows them to bid or to get that money for from the government, because I want to get in on that. Maybe that's another business. Maybe we should scrap this and go do that and rip off the government, Chase. Legally rip them off. Because you make bids for certain things, so they put bids, and we just put a bid in, and we jack it up, and as long as somebody doesn't underbid us, right, we should try to find those disparities. Look, how much money can we make if we sell that bag to the federal government for $70,000, and we can put out an announcement that we just saved the federal government $20,000 a bag. We could be heroes. I mean, people, I don't know if people get it or not, but it's definitely important. It's definitely, when you're talking about this, when you're talking about capital gains, and he said people who don't work. You know who are the people who pay capital gains tax that don't work? Do you know who those people are? A big portion of them? It's not just rich people, because a lot of rich people are still working. A lot of them. Retirees. They're retirees. They earned their money and they paid the higher income tax rate. They took a portion of that money, invested it, took risk with that money, and they're paying a slightly lower rate on the money that they earn off of money that they've already paid taxes on. They pay a slightly lower rate. And yeah, their income taxes are lower even though they have wealth. They have net worth. Okay, affluent people have high income. Wealthy people have net worth. So making $1 million a year is treated totally differently than someone who has assets of $1 million. Now, if it's in an IRA, when it's pulled out, you're going to pay regular income tax on all of that because that was deferred. If you pull it out of other investments, just your standard brokerage or investment account, personal account, you're going to pay the lower capital gains tax or the lower tax on dividends. But again, you've already paid, when you earned it, the tax on your earnings. So these are, to say they're people who are not working and they should just pay more, these are the people who have paid more. And a big portion of those people are what we used to call, there was a book called The Millionaire Next Door. So basically for these millionaires, next door, like I said, they were college educated. They were engineers. A lot of them were engineers for an oil company just a little bit south of where my office was in Perrysburg, Ohio. The oil company called Marathon. Marathon is who owned like the speedways and stuff like that too. But great people, and they saved money. They had money in 401ks. They had money in IRAs. They put their kids through college. They, lived in houses that they stayed in even after they became millionaires. That's why they were the millionaire next door. You didn't know that the the new houses or like the housing, they didn't often move into the neighborhoods where I moved and built my first house, and spent $650,000. No, their house was maybe valued at 250, 300, and they paid 60,000 for it. That's what it was. But just good, honest people that paid their taxes and are doing that. These are not lazy people. These are not people who are not working or didn't play by the rules. And when he talks about the rules, understand this, that if you don't like the rules, change them. If you don't like the rules, change them. But I looked it up, and I think even Newsweek did it, but you can find all this on the IRS website, but nobody wants to go to the IRS website. They just want to make claims about who pays taxes. But pretty much most people who make an income of $40,000 or less get all of their money back, and some of them get more than what is withheld from their checks back. They may, in their head, they think they're paying taxes, but they're not. It's actually being withheld and then given back to them at the end, because they're over withholding, they don't make adjustments, that kind of thing. People do it all the time. They think that, they've scored big if they get a big check back. No, it just means you could have got that money throughout the year if you'd have made the adjustment, but they don't do that kind of stuff. But that's the numbers. And when we talk about Trump's tax cuts that he wants to keep in place, that Congress wants to keep in place, okay, how much of that? How much the liberals want to give more money to the poor? Do we want to do that with welfare? Or do we want to do that with tax credits? And so they don't have to stand in the welfare line. But if somebody's paying no taxes, how can you, let me make this simpler. I'm making it too hard. How can you give a tax cut to somebody who's already their taxes at the end of the year? It was withheld. It was given back to them. They make $40,000 a year or less. How many of those people should get money, or should they all get money? How do you give somebody a tax cut that's not paying any? Part of Trump's tax cuts made it so that an extra million people weren't paying any taxes. So maybe they were paying $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000. Because of the change in the rules, they're not paying any. I don't know what else you want. I don't know what else you want when you're eliminating taxes for those people that they're literally not paying any at all. I don't get it. I had I thought I had somewhere else tax thing, but I guess not. But let's let him finish just a little bit here. But I wanted to throw that in because that's my wheelhouse. I know taxes.
Off.
There's a lot of people that are working their ass off. The whole bottom 50% of the country is working their asses off and getting paid shit.
What's the difference between them and you?
What's the difference between them and me? There's some luck involved. There was a good idea at the right time.
What's the longest vacation you took in the first 10 years of building Ben & Jerry's?
Not much.
Oh, really? Why not? Other people who have jobs can take longer vacations. Why didn't you take it?
I guess I chose to build the business.
And
see how he tells the truth
made
there?
The money that you
Isn't that? I love how Patrick handles him on this, because he said other people that work for him were putting in 40 hours. Maybe if they, had extra orders, maybe some people got overtime. I don't know. but they put in their 40 hours. You think Ben Cohen was putting in 40 hours? What are the chances that he's only working as the co-founder of the company, that he's only working 40 hours? What are the chances of that when he just said he wasn't even taking vacations? If you're not taking vacations, I guarantee you're working more than 40 hours. Because how would that make sense? To not take vacations, but limit your work to 40 hours. That didn't happen. He was working. He was putting the time, and he got rewarded for it in the end, for the work that he did and the risk that he took. And I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. That's how it works. That's the difference. The difference between him and the other guy, the other guy worked hard for his 40 hours. You cannot compare. I mean, I learned this at a very, very young age. Just getting into the workforce, I learned this. That, if you're going to talk about physical labor or, some of the best jobs out there that are blue-collar jobs are electricians. Electricians are always some of the highest hourly paid in unions. I'm not saying they work the hardest out of the trades either. I wouldn't say that. When they're honest with you, they'll tell you the same. Welders, and if you do certain specialized type of welding and stuff too, if you're really good, you can make six figures as a welder. And this was a number of years ago. I mean, I don't know what the welders are making now. And, the plumbers, the pipe fitters, they call themselves plumbers, but it's not the guy. I'm not talking about the guy who's coming to your house fixing your drain. No, I'm talking about on big construction sites, the pipe fitters, because they also have welders in there too, and these are hard construction jobs. And they're working hard, and some of them pay more than others. There are some hard physical. My own story was simply working and getting paid $15 an hour under the table pushing a wheelbarrow. That's some of the hardest work. At over 40 years old, some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It was hard. The reason I got paid that, and when I've been on the lower end and on the broke end of the pay scale, was either one, like starting out, I didn't have the skills or the knowledge yet, or two, because I made fucking bad choices in my life. I made bad choices. I had a great career. I made some bad choices, and I lost it and had to start over. But that shit's on fucking me. That's not on the government. It's not on a billionaire. There was no billionaire that was keeping money out of the pie, and so I didn't get mine. That was dumbass Troy who did that. That's the difference. The idea that everybody, that the lower 40% are all these hardworking people and deserve to make more. How the fuck does that happen? I didn't realize this. So I did some investigation into this. Let's go to 1530 and do that, because we're getting more towards the end. We're not going to do our sports segment. We're going to finish with this today because I think this is so important. So we're going to go to 1530 on here. Yeah, go right ahead, because that's what I'm already talking about.
You can't afford to have a decent life.
I agree with you, but let me ask you a question. For the people that get paid $7.25, for those who do, the few that do, why do you think they do?
Well, I don't know how many there are, but I think there's a lot.
But why do you think they only get paid $7? They don't have to say yes to it.
It's the only job they can find.
Why can't they find any other jobs? Think about that. Actually answer that question right. Why can't they find another job? Rob, what's the least amount you ever got paid?
To calculate, it'd be annually $22,000 a year.
So 22,000 a year divided by, divide four, and how many hours a week were you working, Rob?
50.
Okay, do 50 times 50 is 2,500. Do 22,000 divided by 2,500. $7, $8, and 8.8.
Yep.
So what do you make 8.8 right now?
No.
Did you ever think you're going to make the kind of money you're making right now?
Not when I was making $22,000 a year.
Right. So, but when you came here and all of a sudden you're like, well, we can really build something special here, right?
Correct.
Well, why do we pay you that? Why do we pay whatever the number you know? Why do we pay you what we pay you?
Experience, hard work, what I can do in the future. A combination of all three, I think.
Great, but have you earned it?
Yes.
If somebody
Still earning it though.
I know you are, and you're working your ass off. But if somebody right now paid you $7.25, would you take it?
No.
Why though?
Because I've gotten to a place where my hard work is deserved to be rewarded.
That's right. And guess what? Do you if right now this doesn't work out, do you have options?
Yes.
But you like being here.
Love it.
Of course. So that's the part. So for me, I have to realize I got to take care of the guy. And then for him, guess what he's got to realize? He's got to bring value. And that's the part when I hear that message sometimes, I'm like, okay, I get it, $7.25.
So good.
They don't have to say yes to it.
You know, I think about my life.
Okay.
I'm white. I grew up in a family where my father was a college graduate.
Yeah.
He went to school at night. He was able to buy a house based on a government program that provided money to buy a house for white people, but by federal regulation, it was not available to black people. They would not loan. This was about redlining. The government would not loan into areas that were mostly black, and even if a black person wanted to buy a house in a white area, they said, "Oh no, you can't do that because then it'll be black." That's illegal, immoral, unfair, and
we don't do it anymore.
You know, so the
haven't for a long time.
I want to. What year? Well, I was born in '51, so
Let's say
it was around there.
Okay.
That's when they did it.
You're talking
These
about
people
like
are still
50s is
trapped in the
before, like, This is
50s.
pre-MLK era.
Yes,
Right. Okay.
and
It's a different America today, though.
well, it's no. Well, the America today has a lot to do with the America of the 1950s and before. So my parents were able to buy that house, and that's what helped them build wealth. That's where they got their equity. That's what allowed them to send me to a decent college.
Okay.
That's what allowed them to be in that neighborhood that had good public schools. And there's a lot of other people, say black people, that housing program was not available to. They were not able to build that equity. They were not able to build that generational wealth. They were not able to go to decent public schools. And so they didn't get that education. And that's part of what leads to the current situation where, you know, if you look at the disparity in wealth between black people and white people, I mean, it's kind of huge. And, you know, I mean, the whole country was, you know, it goes back generations.
You're comparing today to the 50s. This is a very different America. I mean, I understand. So the part that I truly want to sympathize with you and empathize with you and understand is the life you've lived. I've not lived your life. So I can't sit there and put myself in your shoes and say, well, you know what? I understand why you have the certain feelings that you have. We all have our own set of stories. I got it. But let's face it, you didn't have enough money where your parents could finance it because you guys had to take a $5 ice cream course to learn how to do this. So it's not like your parents gave you $200,000 to start a business with. Now bring it to me. So now how about me? I wasn't born here, right? Mm-hmm. My parents got a divorce. My dad was a cashier at a 99-cent store. I go in the military and I get out. I had a 1.8 GPA in high school. I'm planning on staying in the military for 20 years. Should I be felt sorry for because my parents got a divorce and I was a welfare kid and I had a 1.8 GPA and I went over there? No, I don't. My dad never felt sorry for me.
Nobody's talking about feeling sorry for you.
But wait a minute. You're saying generational wealth. You know how much money my parents gave to me? 99 cents. But you know what they gave me? I was born in. I lived here at 12 years old. I came to America. It's the greatest gift. The greatest gift anybody can give you is being born in America.
Stop
So you know
right
what
there
I
for
did
a
with that?
second. And you hear me say consistently that it's not white privilege. The privilege is American privilege. We have the privilege of being in the greatest country in the world with the greatest opportunity. And we all have different obstacles. We all have different starting lines. They had different starting lines, some better than others. Same, I have my own story like those two have theirs. But it's the opportunity that we have as Americans. And we are spoiled as fuck. You know, sometimes the biggest problem we have in a day as being Americans is, you know, having somebody at Starbucks fuck up your coffee. And we complain about it. I mean, just look at the shit that people complain about it and put it really into perspective and think what somebody who is truly poor, truly experiences poverty and where there's no opportunity in countries all across the world, how they would love to have your motherfucking problem. And then you're going to hear, I'm going to let this continue to play because you're going to hear how important was that college education for him creating Ben and Jerry's. Now, I will say this. We do need to still address disparities in the number one way, and it's going to take a minute to see the results, but the number one way to address the disparities is to improve our basic educational system. When he was talking about good schools in the 1950s, do you know what they were teaching in the 1950s? History, how to write, actually write, you know, English, math, and basic science. They were teaching the basics. They didn't have classes on feelings and DEI and how to be, you know, a particular gender. They didn't teach that shit. They actually taught real subjects. We don't do that today. Our results suck. We need school choice. I want people who are at the lower levels, income-wise, to have access to the better education he was talking about. And if you don't live in that neighborhood, that you're allowed to send your kid to a different neighborhood to get that education, or maybe a school will come to that neighborhood to provide it and compete with the public school. This idea that the only way to deliver education is only through like a public school system is just stupid. It's not, but everybody should be able to access it. Money should follow the child. You should be able to make the choice. So I am all for it. How we address the disparities, that's how we address it, is giving people equal access. Then it's up to them what they do with it. But get them equal access to real education, and we're not providing that today. And to let schools say, hey, we're over here. We'll take your kids. We're not gonna, this other stuff you can teach at home, whatever you want to do. We're going to teach your kid how to fucking hand back the correct change. We're going to teach the basics. We're going to teach basic math, basic reading, basic comprehension skills. I encounter it every day that people lack basic comprehension skills. That happens to be an area that I've always excelled in. is being able to take something, read it, understand it, and be able to use it and get into it, and then sometimes be able to dig behind it. But those basic comprehension skills, I don't even know if that's part of a class anymore. And that's one of the most important things that you need. So let's let this finish for a second, and then we'll wrap things up.
Work. And I made some money. And I'm not white. And I'm Middle Eastern. And I'm from Iran. And people have called me a lot of weird names while I was in the military. They call me terrorist. They call me this. They call me that because I was in the military, because I have a Middle Eastern look they had never seen when I was in Alabama. Do I really want you to feel sorry for me? I think the part about like looking at it from that standpoint, your argument is the generational wealth argument. Your parents gave you generational wealth and maybe others didn't get it.
I'm not saying that they gave me money. I mean, they were able to pay for college for me.
Do you think even without college, you would have eventually built Ben and Jerry's? What did you learn from college that helped you build Ben and Jerry's? I'm curious.
Not much.
Thank you.
There
let's
you
just
go.
say they don't pay you
Let's
for college.
just end
Would you have
that part
eventually
there.
still built?
There's other good stuff in there. But there you go. So he was building that all up when he was telling his story, right? That's why he's better. But actually, the college didn't make the difference. The foundation made the difference, right? Just your basic education. And for some things, you do need college. You do need to go to a university. If you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or an engineer, there are certain things that you absolutely do need it. But to do what he did, nope, don't need it at all. Don't need it at all to be successful. And when going back to quickly to when they were talking about minimum wage. Now, we looked it up last night. There's 30 states that have a state minimum wage that is higher than the federal minimum wage. Because really, let me ask you, Chase, at any place you've ever worked, going back to like got a legitimate paycheck from, you know what I mean? Going back to 16 or whenever you first started, what was the lowest hourly wage you got? Did you ever get paid $7.70, $7.25?
$7.50 or something like that.
$7.50?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Arizona is one of the 20 states.
I believe they are.
They are? Yeah. And how long did that last? So you were just above federal minimum wage. How long did that last at that job? How long did you work that first job?
Like a year, I want to say.
Okay. And any time during that year, did you get a raise?
No.
No. And then what happened? You made a choice and you left that job?
Yep.
And did the next job pay more than that job did?
Yep.
Yep. Because now you started out, you accepted the $7.25 because you're brand new in the workforce. You showed up every day. You know how to show up every day. You're able to show the next employer, look, I want more money. I've already proven I know how to show up every day. And it goes up from there. I got paid $3.35. And in Ohio, we did not have the federal minimum. And I don't know what the federal minimum wage was back in 1986. I haven't looked it up. But basically just saying that's what I got. And in 30 of the states, people are getting much higher. I tried to ask Grok last night. I think it was Grok, or maybe it was my chat GPT. I don't know. I was using the voice version, and I turned it into a person having a conversation with them. Have you done that yet? That's some weird shit, dude, where you're talking to AI and having a conversation. And I even stopped them mid-sentence and was called bullshit on it. I'm like, Walmart's not paying $7.25. They're paying $15 to $20 an hour now. They're not paying the federal minimum wage. Most of these, you at least today, I don't know, but let me also add this. If you had a minimum wage that was a living wage, and was required, you would not have new small businesses because you couldn't start up. When a small business is starting up, say a guy has a landscaping business or a handyman business and stuff. Do you know who his first employee oftentimes is? His spouse. Because she's doing the books. Because they can't afford to pay somebody to do the fucking books. I remember the first girl that I hired in my financial planning practice part-time. And then I was able to, as my business grew, I was able to give her full-time. And then I was able to increase, but she had no experience. None. She grew with me. And as she got more knowledge, I gave her, and I made more money. I rewarded her too. We both grew. Because as she got more experience, if I didn't pay her, she could leave and go work for some other financial advisor. Say, hey, I've worked in this business for 2 years now. I know exactly what you do. She has more experience. She's worth more money. That's just how it motherfucking works. But you would choke off all innovation if you set a certain require small businesses to do that. I can understand why an existing big corporation and people can look at them and say, well, based on their earnings and their profits that, they should be able to pay more. But again, you're paid for your experience and knowledge, and it's going to grow. Or in some cases like mine, when I started out and started in retail, I didn't have the experience. And I was willing to drive, instead of driving 10 minutes to work, I was willing to drive 30, 35 minutes to work so I could get a higher pay. So the only difference was I could potentially, with the same company, I could potentially earn a commission. But I knew that change also put me in a position to likely move up in the company better too, because I asked. And that's what they told me. Like, how many percent of their managers store managers came from the suit department. So I moved to a store where they actually had a true suit department. But I had to make that investment first. And driving more and paying more for gas and using up more of my time to put me in position for that next big increase, which was good. It was a great increase. But I was willing to do that because I didn't have the experience, and then I got the experience, and then I applied it. And then again, when I lost everything, when I had to start over, that was because I made bad decisions. So, if somebody's not, when they ask me, why is somebody getting $7.75 or $7.25 an hour? They likely don't have any skills yet. It doesn't make them bad, but you can't pay somebody with $7.25 an hour skills what you pay somebody that has $25 an hour skills. And especially when we're talking about small business and how important small businesses in this country, people are always complaining about big corporations. Well, do you want big corporations to take over everything? You just want to wipe out all small businesses? Because that's what would happen. And some people get their start in small businesses and then move on. They get their experience there. They get paid less, but they move on after they have the experience and the knowledge, or maybe they graduate, they have a degree, and they finally moving on to their real career or whatever it is. They're working in retail, but they're working in retail while they're putting themselves, or their parents are putting themselves through school to be a teacher. It's how it works, and it's not a bad system. And what else do you have to do when you're young? Work. What else do you have to do? Like, it's not a terrible thing to work more than 40 hours a week. You're working more than 40 hours a week. You got bank, you got me, and then doing other stuff like this, right? Like, it's not. So actually, you put it all together. I'm not going to throw the number out there, but to get the number you're at, that's a good number. But you're putting in the time to get that number too. And there are other people that are not putting in that time and effort that you are. Why should they get what you have and you've worked for? That is, I need to have a shirt made that says that. That is not a thing. Because that's become a phrase. All right, I could really go on to that. I could go and do 3 episodes and just go through this entire video. It was that good. That's enough of it to really teach you guys. But again, do you agree how he talks to him with respect and stuff, and like really nice? That's how you do an interview with somebody that you don't have the same political beliefs, and you walk out of there friends. You know what I mean? This is how it should be. That's the kind of stuff I like to do myself too. So really, really good. All right. Thank you all very much. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life.